Hey, 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 live from Denver. It's Friday night. Hey, critics. Hey, everybody out there. Welcome to another episode of Critical Conversations, the show where me and my beautiful wife, Melissa,
hello,
get to let our hair down, so to speak, and kind of go over stuff over the week and maybe talk with you guys as well on the call-in line, which will be open later on in the show, 984-214-4154. So I see somebody in the queue right now. You're going to be there for a little while because we got a lot to go over tonight. So, yes. Oh, thank you, Anthony, for that awesome super chat to start the show. Awesome. What a week, huh? We have, I got 3 Post-it notes tonight of stuff. But first, let's go ahead and get into our usual beginning of the show activities.
All right.
So first off, we are going to start with our quote of the week from Melissa. What do you have for us?
Okay, so I have 2 short ones from Eleanor Roosevelt. The first one is, do what you feel in your heart to be right, for you'll be criticized anyway. And the second one is, the future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams.
Wow, very inspirational.
Thank you.
She stands out for me, Eleanor Roosevelt, as the woman who championed and sort of, you know how I guess first ladies have their projects or their things. I don't know, I think there was more than that, but the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, we owe that to her, and she clearly did follow her own advice.
Yes.
So good on that. And also, to start off the show with our normal brand of cuteness here, let us turn on the Snuggles Not Struggles cam.
Oh, there he is.
Check out, there he is, our little bundle of furry joy. That is our dog, Benson the Magnificent. And he's just, as you can see, just sort of kicking it there. Yeah. Where is that? Is that in the kitchen?
It's in the kitchen, yeah.
He likes to hang out all over, and so I guess, Mel, you found him in the kitchen today.
Well, I made him go to the kitchen, and then he laid down. Because we always get him in the living room, so I thought, let's do somewhere different.
And he is he's a Shih Tzu Lhasa mix, as we understand it. So that's what we've been told. He is a rescue, so we didn't get a lot of paperwork with him. Clearwater Chad, thank you for that super chat. Very appreciated. Glad to see you here joining us today. You can give us a weather update. It's been pretty rainy and crazy here in Denver. And of course, as we all saw the photos, if you're on the East Coast, it looks like Blade Runner 2049 over there right now. We had our own battle with Canadian fire.
Yeah, like a month ago or something?
A couple weeks, a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And it got bad, but it wasn't anything like what the East Coast is seeing right now. It's looking pretty bad over there. So first thing to comment on this week is the Masterson attorneys were sanctioned. This is Tom Mesereau and Sharon Applebaum. And so that's going to go on their record. It's not going to and they got a slap on the wrist fine of like $950 or something. I'm really not sure why Judge Almeida sort of, did not go further or harder with that. But it is what it is, I guess. We move on. The thing I sort of thought and have heard from Cyprian, my lawyer friend, a little bit, we talked about it a little bit, is that this is the sort of thing that people will remember about you or know about you sometimes. It's not necessarily mandated that the lawyer have to tell his clients, oh, well, I've been sanctioned for this and this and this. But this is the kind of thing you can look up in doing research. And, of course, I posted a clip from Breaking Bad, when Walt and oh my God, Jesse, yes, were looking for a lawyer and found Saul Goodman, who Jesse insisted was not just a criminal lawyer, he was a criminal lawyer.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the, I think I will certainly never look at Tom Mesereau the same again. That's for sure. Okay. So there was that. And then and you'll probably hear more about that when Tony and I talk for our Straight Up and Vertical show. Oh, I hear.
Yeah, Benson's shaking his little foot
underneath the table right now,
scratching himself.
Okay. All right. The other interesting. There were some interesting news items this week, and I'm not going to turn this into a news show, but just some of these things were worth commenting on for my activities or what we talk about here. Hey, Henny, glad to see you've arrived. So Pat Robertson died this week, and
did.
I'm not going to say awful things, but I'm also not going to say kind things. I have known about Pat Robertson since the 700 Club when I was first introduced to that in the 1980s, and the reason that was on my radar as a teenager in high school, I'm talking about early 1980s, is because of their very vociferous stance against Dungeons and Dragons, and this was the Satanic Panic in full bloom, and I lived through that in the 1980s, as did a lot of you, and if you remember, that was a time of what we can definitely look back on and say mass hysteria. There were even the McMartin School case where some school kid people who were running a children's school were being tried on from recovered memories from these children. It was all nonsense, and they were being accused of satanic pedophilia and stuff. It was really quite awful. Well, Pat Robertson was one of the people who was leading the charge on that kind of thing. And that was just one of a laundry list of things that we can point to that he took on that were just completely against my values, at least, and against, what a lot of people would think of as freedom of speech, freedom of belief, freedom of thought. He just had other ideas, and he thought, that God, he had all kinds of stuff. But a point that a friend of mine made to me this week in talking about this was the fact is, if you really step back and kind of remove all the bias, the probable reality is that over the years, just like the reaction he had on me, Pat Robertson probably drove more people away from Christianity than he did drive towards it because of his awful antics. And that's just an interesting point to think about. You can never prove it. It's proving literally trying to prove a negative. But it's an interesting point to make, is that, how many of these pastors or televangelists or prosperity gospel nonsense, creeps are actually driving people away. Well, what we know right now, as I quoted, I think last week or the week before, is we have seen a dip of 10% loss in church attendance over the last 20 years. And that's not for nothing. And that's not because the atheists are on the rise. Atheism as a group is still surveyed as one of the least trusted groups anywhere. So it's not that the atheist promotional materials are changing hearts and minds. It's, I believe, I don't think I'm on totally out on a limb in saying, I think it's a lot of the exposure of church abuses and the nonsense and overreach that those guys get up to that is driving people away.
Right. They're just pure hatred of other groups of people that are different than them.
Yes, the us versus them get laid on a little bit thick with some of those guys.
Yeah.
And again, this is not a broad statement about
it's not
all
every religion. Yeah.
We of course on this show talk about the outlying, extreme, really nasty guys who tend to get shoved in our faces. And then months or years later, we tend to see criminal activity that they've been involved in. We saw this with Jerry Falwell Sr. We saw this with, who was that? Tammy and...
Jim Baker.
That's it. Tammy Faye and Jim Baker, right? We saw various other things. So just nonsensical, very, very hypocritical behavior out of them, if not criminal. Jerry Falwell Jr. as well, right? Removed for all kinds of scandalous behavior. Okay, and then the other thing that happened this week that also my friend John P. and I were talking about that is actually really important, and so this is actually cool. This is from the LA Times from June 6th, and I just want to read about this story because this has everything to do with what we always talk about, prosecuting cults in America and how difficult that is. Well, this is a non-religious cult, very similar, in fact, to NXIVM. So you do have these cultic activities occurring in groups that are not religious, but are still focused around secret lore, secret knowledge, hidden truths, empowerment sort of dogma, self-empowerment, this kind of thing. Well, here's another one, and this is the Orgasmic Meditation Group. This is the headline, Orgasmic Meditation Group manipulated members with forced labor, sex abuse, feds say. Okay, did you guys hear about this one? The founder and former executive of One Taste, this is the name of the company, One Taste, a San Francisco-based sexuality-focused wellness education company that grabbed national media attention, were indicted on charges of conspiring to force employees to work for them by inflicting sexual, psychological, and economic abuse. And throughout this article, and I really want to read you the whole thing, but I don't want to take all the time to do it. This woman, Nicole Dayton, 56, the founder and spiritual leader of One Taste, spiritual leader of a business. Kind of interesting. And Rachel Cherwitz, who served as head of sales, used, quote, a series of abusive and manipulative tactics, end quote, to get volunteers and employees to perform work for them from 2004 to 2018.
Wow.
They were charged in federal court in Brooklyn for Eastern District. Cherwitz was arrested Tuesday, and Dodone remains at large. One Taste rose to prominence. Here's the angle they were riding on. One Taste rose to prominence for its focus on women's pleasure, offering courses in orgasmic meditation during which gloved men would bring women to climax with their fingers. But according to federal investigators, the sexual liberation and healing One Taste offered were a smokescreen behind which Dayton and Cherwitz manipulated and controlled members, driving them, this is going to sound a little familiar, driving them into debt with expensive courses while surveilling them and keeping dossiers of their personal information. Okay, so you kind of get the flavor of what's going on here. Okay, so One Taste. Yes, exactly. So that happened this week. And the reason this is exciting to me is because I have complained about, and I probably will continue to do so, that in the United Kingdom, they have passed a coercive control law. Now, that law is focused almost exclusively on domestic violence and domestic abuse. But it is at least codified in the law over there that a repeating pattern of abusive, predatory behavior with controlling behavior, not necessarily even involving physical violence, can be prosecutable. And we don't have similar things here. And yet, here we see a company being taken to task and women in the head of this company indicted for that exact kind of repeating pattern of abusive behavior. So this is really good news. They're not calling it coercive control, but they might as well, because that's what these women engaged in, or at least that's what allegedly occurred there. Okay, and I see some more people in the calling queue, which is kind of awesome. So again, y'all will have to be patient, but I see you in the queue, so I'm definitely going to get to those calls. So those were our first two things I wanted to talk about that happened this week that I thought were pretty cool. And then we have, okay, all week I have been prepping. I had to put the tone scale video aside for this last week because I've been reading in full this book. This is Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion by Dr. Robert Cialdini. This is a very famous book in the circles I run in. And influence, of course, is very, very important. And I'm going to give a talk on Saturday here in Denver, tomorrow night, at the Secular Hub. And so if you want to go to that, you can come. I think it's free. There's no
Yeah.
charge for it. But I've been studying this book and various other materials, and because we read some of this book on my program, but I never really sat down and did the whole thing. And so this is all about influence and manipulation. And a lot of things from this book were inspired me to talk about this tonight, because it became abundantly clear to me. A few things did, which I'm going to go over in the talk, but a few things became abundantly clear to me in reading this book and going over the science, the social science research, which has been replicated. This is not just one study or one research here or there. There are countless numbers of studies validating social science on various ways that you, me, and thee are manipulatable or are able to be influenced by various things. And a lot of these influences come like I say with cults are just regular groups doing regular things that that get out of hand. They just dial it up to 11. They take things that might look good, sound good, be good, and they just make it awful. Well, similarly, all the methods or ways of influencing people, and there's 7 of them that Cialdini has listed, are totally instinctive, normal, regular things that we need to be able to do or have in order to be able to get along the way that we do. And you'll see what I mean when I start listing them out, but I'm just saying these are all based on regular, normal things, not abnormal. Let's excise them. Let's get rid of these genes that do this. This is an aberration of human behavior, and somehow we're going to get rid of it. It's much worse. It's that, no, we have to acknowledge the fact that these are an intrinsic part of our behavior and makeup and character, every human being, and we have to kind of learn how these things can be used against us, okay? Mm-hmm. Juliana, I will not be streaming the talk from the hub, but probably next week or sometime soon, I will do a live stream on my channel using this presentation, using this information to break it all down for you guys. We're just going to do a little taste of it tonight because there's a lot to talk about here. So there's a lot here. Okay, so the 7 points, let's just list out the 7 points real fast. Reciprocity, exchange, right? Like if I give you something, unless there's something like I'm going to say, unless you're in a minority of people, I'm not going to say it's good or bad, right or wrong, or there's something wrong with you if you don't feel this way. But if I give you something, odds are, statistically speaking, you are going to feel obligated to give me something back. It's going to sit there. Mm-hmm. It's going to sit there, right? Preferably you can do it right away. This is based on probably what I believe is the most fundamental equation of life itself, of living organisms, tit for tat. Give and take, back and forth. And, game theory has been done on this. There's been a lot of very interesting and very serious research about this idea of tit for tat and how life manifests it and what happens in groups or with individuals if it falls out of balance and this kind of thing. It's actually quite fascinating. But reciprocity or exchange is an influence. And this is almost and often at a subconscious kind of level. You just feel a certain way and you don't even necessarily know why. This was famously used by the Hare Krishnas and the Moonies back in the 70s and 80s when they were at airports and they'd hand you a little flower or a little token or a pen or something. And just the fact of doing that and you might think, here's the funny thing about this, you might think none of what I'm going to say tonight applies to you. All of it does.
Oh, yeah.
It is. We lie to ourselves about this constantly. But
I'm not dumb enough. Yeah, yes, you are.
Yeah, exactly. So you will give somebody something, and the majority of people will feel obligated enough to stop and listen to you, listen to your pitch, or give you something back for it, etc. So that is, and I'm just running through these real fast. There's a lot more examples I could give, and we're going to talk about a very interesting, very, very interesting one called the Werther effect, but we'll get to that. Another category of influence is authority. Okay, authority. We imbue somebody or something with authority, and when we have done that, either through symbols, titles, regalia, cultural things, whatever it is that we use to recognize someone as an authority, once we have done that, their status and the things they say to us and the things they do mean more to us. And this is so built into us that it actually affects perception. I was fascinated to learn this, but it's actually true that if you believe somebody is an authority figure in your eyes, to the way you interpret the world, they will become taller.
Wow.
Literally, you will misestimate their size by inches, depending more and more on how much authority you've invested in them. And I couldn't help, of course, I have to go here. I couldn't help but think about David Miscavige. Or Tom Cruise, for that matter.
Right. They're both kind of shorter.
They are very short guys.
Yeah.
Right? They are not average or tall. They are short. But nobody really, and when you see them from a distance, or you see them in a photo or something, you can comment on that. But I'll bet you in person, people don't see them that way. I'll tell you what. The last thing on my mind in the times when I was in the room with David Miscavige, and there were a few of those, his size never even occurred to me that he was a small man. Ever. That's not how I was perceiving him. He was the biggest thing in the room when I was in the room with him. And I thought about that after I was reading this book, and I went, that's true. That makes a lot of sense to me. And this is just a perception thing. But but I wanted to bring it up as just one of many examples I could cite of how we will change our interpretation of the world. It's not that your eyes aren't seeing right. It's your brain doing a little mental trickery with you. Because of this imbued authority, now this person is more important. You have to pay more attention. They become literally bigger. And there are other tricks like that we're not ever even aware of consciously when they are happening to us. That's the key to this thing is getting that, because it's crazy weird. Consistency is another point. Okay, beyond authority. How consistent someone is, various ways you can play with consistency can influence a person. Commitment. Okay, this is a real big one, right? If somebody gets you to commit to something in some fashion.
Sign something. Yeah.
That's right, right? Well, contract law is based all about this.
Yeah, put it in your calendar or something like that. Yeah, just commit it. Yep.
Right? So commitment is crucial. If somebody can, again, and the reciprocity, these things play off each other. If someone can get you, can give you something or somehow do something for you, you'll feel this reciprocity kick in. But then if they can get you to maybe then use that to commit to something, a small thing.
Oh, sure.
Doesn't have to be anything big, right?
Just come to this meeting just one time.
Exactly. Just listen to what he has to say. What's it going to hurt? Right? You feel obligated, you commit, and because you've committed, now there's more influence. Now there's more obligation. And you will go and follow through on that. And because you're there following through on your commitment, you can easily be made to commit a little bit more and a little bit more, because your foot's already in the door. See, that's kind of the strategy here, is get their foot in the door, and it's going to be a lot harder for them to not continue walking in because of that inertial sort of flow, right? That's sort of like you're already on your way. You'd have to actively stop yourself and turn around.
Yeah.
And that takes more effort.
And you might have to talk to someone about why you're turning around.
Exactly. Or answer questions or make excuses. And who wants to do that? It's easier to just go along. I tell you, you wouldn't believe it, but on this channel and on my show, we have discussed how even serial killers use these kinds of subtle mechanisms to draw people in and keep them there. Even when a person realizes they've gone into a situation, and this was noted by a guy who got caught, a serial killer, I think over in the UK, who in prison was interviewed, and he talked about the fact that he could see in their eyes when he had them under his control, and they realized that they could turn around and run away or get out of that situation, but they were trapped. They were stuck there, and it was too late, and it was all over. And there was this recognition that occurred, and yet they didn't act to turn around, to run away, to get out of that situation because of social conventions, manners, commitment, right? This is what I'm talking about here. This is not small stuff. It's stuff that is underneath your own radar, which makes it so influencing and hard to fight back against. And we'll get to that. How do you fight back against this stuff? So, okay, so then there's social proof. Now, social proof is real interesting. We all know this one. This is basically human beings manifesting herd mentality. If you see a bunch of people doing something, you're going to think immediately, I need to be doing that, or what's going on. It's at least going to attract your attention. But it's going to, more often than not, you will also participate. If you go and you see 20 people looking up, you're going to look up. What's up there? Could be nothing. Could be a bird. Could be a plane. Could be Superman. But it's the mere fact that a bunch of people are doing something that's going to get you to feel compelled to do the same thing. If you see a bunch of people running, whoa,
might start running yourself.
You're not going to hang out there to see what's happening. You're going to go, hey, maybe I should get moving. Obviously, this is instinctive survival behavior, and we can go all the way back to evolutionary biology and herd mentality as to why, right? Or tribe mentality, and makes all kinds of sense. Yeah, exactly, Juliana. The experiment of people standing up and down in a waiting room. You can do. There have been so many experiments on this where people have been put into situations where people are doing stuff. Even the conformity, the Ash conformity experiments, where everybody in the room says that there's two lines presented, one short, one long, and everybody in the room says the short one is the longer one, because they're all in on the experiment, and the test subject will sit there, and 75% of the time, usually, 3 out of 4 times, they will agree the short line is the longer one.
Wow.
It's called social proof, right? Because society or people around you are proving that this thing is true or valid or real, and is something you need to also partake in. And we see this in advertising with 4 out of 5 dentists, right? People prefer, right? Mothers prefer, etc. All of this is social proofing. Well, the majority of people are doing it, therefore it must be right. So I should buy.
Like, who are these 4 out of 5 dentists? When did you survey them? Can I see the paper? Like,
That's right. That's right. Exactly. Who are these 4 out of 5 dentists? So social proof is really interesting, but let me shock you a little bit right now, because I read about this and I thought, no way. And nope. Yes way. This is absolutely a thing. Okay. This is a well-documented phenomenon around the world. This is an aspect of social proof, and we will get into how. And it's called the Werther effect. Werther. You can Google this. the Werther effect. And it refers to the identified rise in suicide rates following well-publicized reports of death by suicide of celebrities or other well-known figures in the media. Okay, let me do that. Let me read that again. The Werther effect refers to the identified rise in suicide rates following well-publicized reports of deaths by suicide of celebrities or other well-known figures in the media. So, what? Does that mean what I think that means? Yeah, it means that, let me just check this here. Yeah, we're good. So it's the publication. It's not the event of a celebrity or a VIP or something. It's not the fact that it was that person who killed themselves. It's the publication of it, the broadcasting of it. The wider you broadcast it, the bigger the event is made out to be. There is an attendant within days and weeks of this. There is an attendant rise in suicides. And get this. This is also true for violent events. Even it has been studied that even boxing events, again, well-publicized boxing events, will increase homicide rates following that event.
Well, and weren't you saying it was like the people that like identify in the same way as these people, like maybe they're both white males, 35 to 40, and they have a certain illness or something, and then they're like, "Oh, that guy killed himself, so I'm going to kill myself."
Well, funny you should ask.
Isn't that what you were saying?
That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
Yeah.
There's another little interesting tidbit to this, which is that you will find, or at least statistics find, that it is a similar type of person who is more likely to respond in kind. In other words, if it was a prominent white celebrity who killed themselves, it will statistically be true that the rate of suicides amongst white males will increase. Now, maybe other ones do too, but notably similar type of person. If it's a prominent black celebrity, you will see an attendant rise in black male suicides. Or the same is true for females. Mm-hmm. And with the violent events, it's the same thing. If a white boxer, this is just what they found is, if a white boxer, championship title, whatever, everybody hears about this. White males violence over the next few days, homicide rates increase, and same with blacks, vice versa. So this is called the Werther effect, and this is what I was just reading to you is from the Suicide Bereavement UK website. There are other sites where this is discussed. Copycat suicide is what this is under on Wikipedia, if you go looking there. But this is not some rando sort of thing. This is a well-documented phenomenon. And at first, I had a real hard time believing that. I thought that is crazy. But that's one of the things that kind of makes you realize, at least it made me realize in reading through this material, more so than when I'd read through it read parts of it when I was doing my master's, is the realization that these points are subconscious. These are instinctive. These are not under our control. These are not in our awareness. I should back up. It's not that it's not under our control once we know about it, but even then, it would require a state of hyper-vigilance and constant reflection to be aware of all of these all the time. There's no way. There's just no way you have the brain power for that. And it's too instinctive for us to easily resist.
Right.
It's very hard. It's very hard to even spot it, and then it's hard to resist it. So these impulsive behaviors or compulsive behaviors are built into us. Again, most of the time they serve us quite well. We don't have to think about it because it's helping us. But when you bring predators, narcissists, cult leaders, bad people into the mix, then things can get a little topsy-turvy for us. And it is, in our best interest to understand how we actually operate. Free will and choice are things that we value and think about and prize, but there's a lot of illusion there. To be blunt. Okay, we like to kid ourselves about how much choice and determinism we have. And we're not automatons or robots. That's not my point. No. It's that our instinctive drives are pretty damn strong, and most of them are under our own radar. 2 other points on this, and then we'll get to the calls, is liking. This is another influencer. How much you like somebody, how much you like a person or can relate to them. And politicians use this incessantly. There was this wonderful, you didn't really like it, but there was a movie called The Adjustment Bureau with Matt Damon. Yeah. But I loved that movie. One of the reasons that I absolutely loved that movie, I think it was 2003, because I was just pulling up the clip from it, is a scene where Matt Damon is a young senator, or trying to become a senator, and he is on the campaign trail, and he kind of breaks down and loses it during a speech, and explains to the crowd how every image they are looking at and his clothes and what color tie he is wearing and how many scuff marks there are on his shoes are all calculated decisions on the part of his handlers, who they have paid good money to, all because the colors and style and scuffs on his shoes and the fact that an American flag is flying behind him between 2 blue banners with white writing. All of these were choices that were made to influence people at a subconscious level to like him, to be able to find him relatable, because that's what's going to ensure that he's going to get their vote, is how much they like him. It's that big of a deal. And these sort of subconscious things are absolutely fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. Yeah, based on a Philip K. Dick story. That's right. I love the movie. I thought it was great. I thought it was just kind of clever, but this point was well demonstrated in that movie, which is why I always go back to that. Okay, so liking, obvious influencer, and believe me, this has way more weight than you might imagine. We call this bias or prejudice when you are choosing the friend over your foe, when maybe the foe was more deserving, accurate, right? But this also plays into juries. This also plays into even sentencing, right? Judges have been found statistically to sentence people less when they are attractive looking. And
I'm sure it's that same thing as the Werther effect. People like you're gonna punish less than people that are different than you.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That difference, similar. That thing is really, really, really important. Yeah. So liking is kind of a big umbrella. There's a lot that fits under that. And finally, there is one of the big ones that we all know about from advertising is scarcity. If something is made scarce, it is more valuable automatically, immediately, and at once. It's just a calculation that we make. If something is scarce or appears to be scarce, or we are convinced that something is scarce, not available, not easy to get, will be gone tomorrow, this is the last of its kind. If I told you guys this was the last pack of critical thinking cards on the planet, you would start telling me that this is a collector's item and is going to be worth money. You just automatically would assume that because this is the last of its kind. There's nothing about this any more special than any other version of it, but because this is the last one, suddenly I can sell it to you for $1,000 rather than $10. And that is, again, crucial to our survival. Easy to see why it would be an influencer for us when it comes to resource management or food scarcity. But we can take that to an extreme and salespeople and manipulators know that. And that's why they will fool us or trick us with buy nows. Got to get it today. This offer isn't going to be available tomorrow. In fact, the salesperson might not even be in this area anymore if you don't get it tonight. They always set up scenarios where you got to do it now. And that's because they're playing on that impulse of scarcity. Okay. So,
yeah.
Let's get some calls.
All
we
right.
have some people very patiently waiting in the queue
yes,
here.
Yes, we do.
All right. All right. First one on deck here. Hello, is this Adam from Texas?
Yes, sir. How you guys doing?
Hey, you've been very patiently holding since the beginning of the show. What's up?
Oh, man, I hope I'm not going to derail you too much because I called in before I saw the topic, but it could be related, I guess.
Hey,
I had something kind of funny happen to me this week.
Yeah, you said, what happened?
So it's a small thing, but a little backstory. I take internet surveys, earn points, you turn them in for gift certs and things like that. And this one particular site is called My Points. And I was doing some surveys earlier this week and hit on one, and it says, hey, we're going to show you this 90-second commercial, and then we'll ask your a few questions about it afterwards. No big deal. Turns out it's a Scientology commercial.
Of course.
It's like 90 seconds of them
They're doing
going
surveys.
it was the way of happiness and the drug pamphlets and them going to sites where there's, distress and handing out pamphlets and all this stuff. And at the end of it, they're asking questions like, what did you think about this? Of course, I'm getting negative responses on all of them. And then every time they had a spot where, why do you feel this way? My answer for every one of these questions was, because Scientology is a cult and a money-making scam. Hey, David, where's Shelley? For every single one of the answers. So it was like 5 minutes of my time. I got like 50 points for it. So no big deal. But every single question, hey, David, where's Shelley? And after I took the survey, I'm like, I got to call you guys on Friday and relate the story to you. I thought it'd be hilarious.
Absolutely. Thank you for doing that. One, because I'm actually happy to know, because I didn't know that they were doing those kind of surveys with Scientology, commercials or properties. And two, because your response was absolutely perfect. So thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely. And that's basically all I had, man. I don't want to take up the time. I know a lot of people are waiting. So I appreciate you taking the call, and I'll keep watching.
Awesome. All right, Adam, thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right. Good. Let's get to our next one here. Hello, is this Ian?
Ciprian?
Oh, hi. Hello.
Hello.
Cyprian. What's up, man?
I was kind of expecting we were going to talk about that remarkable development in the Masterson trial.
Pray tell.
The one where the defense attorneys for Masterson were grilled on how the leak happened, and
yeah. I expected to talk more on Sunday. We did address that a little bit during the beginning of the show, but please go on.
Well, that was a remarkable, almost made-for-TV moment. And I think it the essence of it was that one of the attorneys said, well, there's no specific law against leaking it. And of course, Marcy's law was brought up. But aside from that, it's about the inherent power of the court to control the confidentiality of some of the proceedings.
Right.
This was an absolutely absurd argument.
That's right. Let me just make sure everybody's on the same page here, that we are talking about the leak of discovery materials in the Danny Masterson trial and the hearing that was held this week in regards to that, and the fact that the lawyers for Tom Mesereau and Sharon Applebaum were making some pretty lame arguments to the judge. And Cyprian is our resident legal advisor here, and he's offering some commentary on that, just to contextualize this phone call in case anybody didn't get what that was. So Cyprian, please continue.
And it is worth looking at Tony Ortega's Substack for the transcript. Mm-hmm. It is a remarkable transcript because I cannot imagine anybody who has gone through the first half of law school ever trying to argue, well, there's no statute against it.
Right.
Because there is a great deal of case law and a great deal of power invested in courts, Marbury v. Madison, that should make it absolutely obvious that no, you're not supposed to do that.
Right. So basically, the judge was sort of rolling. If you were reading it right from what you and I discussed, it was a bit of a, are you kidding me right now with this sort of responses from the judge, not saying those words, but in effect. Because it was a little hard for me to follow the transcript because of the legalese of what was going back and forth. And that's why, when you looked at it, you're like, oh, yeah, no, this judge is not having any of this. These guys are saying ridiculous things, and they're just being kind of punched down again and again. Did I get that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So they didn't even bring good arguments to the judge as to why these leaks happened. And that's why, it was a pretty cut and dry for the judge to, I think Tony mentioned it looked pretty clear that she had come in with her mind made up, and those arguments were so lame that they just reinforced her opinion that Messerow and Applebaum had screwed up.
And I think that raises the question of why would presumably intelligent and accomplished lawyers ever submit such horrible arguments?
Yeah.
That does not seem natural.
Interesting. You suspect something else?
I'm wondering if the lawyers feel browbeaten by Scientology.
Oh.
I mean, while certainly a lot of money would be involved, lawyers have walked away from bad clients before. And anybody in their legal career trying to advance arguments as stupid as that is probably doing it not because they believe it, but because they've got something else going on.
Well, when it comes to yeah, I mean, certainly when it comes to Scientology, I can't. It's always worse than you think. I always fall back on that because it always ends up being true. Let me ask you a question out of the comments here. Somebody commented that the $950 was strategic as a sanction because they not wanting to wait to this action as not to open the door for a mistrial. Would that? What's your take on that?
I find that hard to believe. I don't know the specifics of California law and their disciplinary system.
Okay.
But normally, a lawyer being sanctioned for conduct unrelated to the conviction would not raise a mistrial.
Okay. That was my first thought, but the law always surprises me, so that's what I wanted to ask you about it.
But that's one of the things where you need California-specific knowledge, and I don't have that.
Fair enough. So it could well be a valid point. We just don't know. But thank you for bringing it up there in the comments. Appreciate that. Okay, cool. Did you have any other points on this? Because I do have another call in the queue that I need to get to.
No, just I think it's worth investigating if the lawyers themselves are being browbeaten.
Okay. I mean, I wouldn't put past Scientology, that's for sure. I know David Miscavige is all kinds of pissed right now. And he's got to be pissed about that leak coming out. He's got to be. There's no possible way that's good news for him. So when you talk about these guys being browbeaten, I am sure. I have no doubt.
Well, good day.
All right. Thank you very much, Cyprian. Have a good weekend. All right. And let us pick up this last call here. Hello, is this Travis?
It is.
Hey, welcome to the show, man. Thanks for calling in.
Thank you for taking my call. And thank you, Melissa, for being on the show today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah.
I always love
Chris
Melissa
earlier.
on the show. Uh-huh.
Wow. See, there you go. Hey, listen, you mentioned a point a little earlier in the program about likability and how that is a subconscious bias.
Uh-huh.
That is a huge point. And there have been lots of studies about this. And likability is one of the biggest factors in politics, media, you name it, getting hired, getting friends, getting a spouse. It trumps everything almost. Think about, I've got two examples just everybody would know that that emphasizes this. The first is think about Bill Clinton during his tenure as president. We all know that Bill Clinton does not have the best
behavior
in his personal life. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can say that.
I think that's demonstrable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely proven fact.
And that came out, and since his exit from office, that's certainly been demonstrated.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, it had come up during his tenure as president. I'm not saying that he's a bad guy or a good guy. I'm not talking about his policies here. What I am talking about specifically is or was his likability.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a very well talked about subject that he has a knack for connecting with people.
Mm-hmm.
When he's in a room, he's a very charismatic man, or at least was. I don't know. He's old now. He's wore his heart out doing that stuff he likes doing in his private life.
Apparently so. Yes.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you're old and you do what he does or has done. Regardless of that, he was very charismatic and people liked him, even though it was shown that this man is not the kind of person you even leave a glass of milk with alone. And that is a great example of likability, or at the time of his tenure, likability. I mean, since then, people are like, hey, Bill, can you go sit in the back room now? So he went from being a likable guy and was given so much slack to do whatever he does to now he's not likable. Okay. So that's an example, a real world example. And the other one is one of the greatest musicians of all times, Prince.
Oh, I'll say.
Prince was an exceptionally, Prince is an exceptionally was an exceptionally charismatic man.
Yep.
I've often said that Prince could walk down the street in a clown suit, and most everybody who would do that would get yelled at. Hey, what are you doing? You're a loser. But if Prince did it, well, it's Prince.
That's right.
Yeah, don't worry about it. It's Prince. Look, Prince is wearing a clown suit. How awesome is that? Well, it's because it's Prince. He's likable. He's Prince. Rightfully so. I mean, the man was a genius. He did a lot of things. It's Prince. Everybody loves that guy. Everybody still loves that guy. When he died, a local radio station where I lived in Houston, played nothing but his catalog for 24 hours straight.
Oh, wow.
Okay?
Wow.
Just deep cuts, everything. And I've been a Prince fan for most of my life. And they were playing some things that were fairly obscure by radio play standards.
Wow.
Those are two great examples of likability.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
Now, Prince deserved the likability. Bill Clinton, well, that's the debatable one. I'm not here to talk about him any further. But you can see this in your personal life. Think back to the job where you had the likable fool. Yeah, the guy showed up sometimes, but hey, whatever. He's likable. Oh, yeah, he's just sort of a friendly oaf.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the guy that was a bit surly but did a bang-up job, he's surly.
That's right.
He comes in and yells, and then he has a couple of cups of coffee. But the guy does whatever better than everybody. Well, so what? He's still yuck.
That's
okay?
right.
Goes for women and it goes for men.
Yep.
You know, and society is how it is. So sometimes women get judged differently than men get judged differently than women. It is what it is.
Yep.
These are things for people to think about, and it's a big deal. I encourage you, Chris, to do a program perhaps about this, if you so care to.
Yeah, no, I'm probably going to next week. Probably going to.
What, did you already have that planned?
Yeah. I think I mentioned earlier with these on all this research I've been doing all week. I don't want to just do one presentation on this, so I'm probably going to do a live stream next week about it.
Hey, I want all the viewers to know that I did not coordinate this with Chris at all as a teaser. Yeah. In the broadcast industry, we'd call this a teaser or a bumper, depending on how it's counted. So y'all watching this, trust me, that didn't what happened. What I will say though is there is a book called The Likability Factor, and I have no deal with that book. It's just something I read, and it's something that is very important for the reasons I've obviously stated.
Yep.
Excuse me, they're obvious because of what I've stated. And it's something to think about. And most of your people watching now and in the future, y'all don't know me personally. This is something that I'll leave at. I've had to learn in my own life for a variety of reasons. And you can either learn it the hard way or just learn it and be, okay, that's life.
That's right. Right.
And those are my 2 cents.
Awesome.
And I appreciate you letting me monologue here, Chris.
No problem, Travis. Thank you very much for calling in and basically reinforcing what I was talking about there with more examples. You're spot on. Yeah. And you're right. This is really, really important stuff. So I'm always happy for that.
It's one of the most important. Correct. And it's one of the most important things in life. And I just remembered another example. This is one of an insidious example. Look, you guys, there's an opioid epidemic. Everybody knows this. This is not a thing.
Yeah.
Those guys the pharmaceutical companies pulled all sorts of chicanery. But you know what they do when they send the mechanism were the pharmaceutical reps. Well, guess what? They don't get old, ugly guys like me to be a pharmaceutical rep.
Yeah, they get cute women.
And good-looking guys. I've seen both. I've seen it. Yep. I know what you're talking about.
Yep.
Yeah, because here's my approach. Hey, you want to get some good dope? Here's this. What, you want to buy it now? That's my pitch. You know, that would go over like a screen door in a submarine.
Exactly.
No.
Exactly.
You know what? The woman with the wonderful hair, and she smiles and says, "Oh, you're so nice. Hey, let's go have ribs for dinner," or whatever people like to eat nowadays.
Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah.
Big time.
Big time. You have something that will destroy people's lives? Well, I'll just prescribe that because why don't you come back next week?
Yep. You're absolutely right. It actually is that push button sometimes with some people, and it's terrifying that it is that way, but it is. Yeah.
And it's like that for young people, which you'd expect this from young people, not teenagers. But it's also like that for old people like myself, which it can be like that for old people. It's not as bad. You get set in your ways when you get older.
That's right.
Or frequently.
That's right.
And so.
There we go.
That's
all right,
it for me.
Thanks for the call.
Thanks for taking my call.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Good night.
All right. And we're going to go a little over because since we brought this up, somebody's calling in about the thing with the $950 and the sanction and judgment on those lawyers. So let's go ahead and pick this up real fast. Hello, you are on.
Hello.
Hi.
First-time caller.
Well,
Hi. Actually, I just discovered your channel like 3 days ago.
Wow.
So.
Awesome. Well, welcome to the show, and thanks for calling in. What you got for us today?
Well, I am not an attorney, but I was a legal secretary for many, many years. And things might have changed because it's been a while. But anything over $1,000, then they have to be investigated by the bar.
Right.
And so if you keep the sanction under $1,000 A, they don't have to be investigated by the bar, and B, they can't go in for an appeal, which could turn things back with the other case. It could cause problems for the other case.
Got it. Okay, well, that's totally fine. If that's a legal fact, I'm totally fine that that's a legal fact, and that would explain why she put what she put there and said what she said. So that makes sense. I can think with that. Great. All right.
Well, thanks for taking my call.
Absolutely. Thanks for calling in and verifying that for me. Yeah. Appreciate it.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye. All right. Good deal.
Yeah.
Excellent calls this week, guys. All right. So let's go ahead and wrap up the show. So our critical thinking cards, as usual. Mel, what do we got this week?
Ambiguity. That's your fallacy of the week. Using double meanings or ambiguities of language to mislead or misrepresent the truth.
Oh, but nobody ever does that.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
When the judge asked the defendant why he hadn't paid his parking fines, he said that he shouldn't have to pay them because the sign said fine for parking here, and so he naturally presumed that it would be fine to park there. Yeah, try that one.
Exactly. Try that one. All right, guys, we will have a John Atack conversation tomorrow where you're going to get to hear him and I talk about my sort of a model in progress on human behavior. And I really hope you guys will check this out because it explains, like today, explains an awful lot about why people are acting the way that they act. And if you want to really understand the political divide and the ideological culture war nonsense, then it's really kind of important that we understand ourselves a little bit better and understand other people. And so John and I had a great conversation about this stuff. So that's coming tomorrow. Sunday, live critical Q&A right here. Okay, it'll probably be 11 a.m. my time. I will post a link, post that this weekend. So be here live to ask me anything. I'm silly enough that I will probably answer. And we will have a show then. And with all that, let's go ahead and wrap up for the week. Thanks very much for coming around, guys. Always fun. Always a good time.
Night.